Okay, so for those of you that don't know, James started his career serving at Red Robin. So if you could go back, how many years ago was that?
That was a long time ago now, 20 years ago.
20 years ago. If you could go back 20 years and tell that
Doesn't
little
feel
boy,
like 20 years, by the way.
and tell that little boy what you are up to today and how your life was going to turn out, what would you say?
That I was happy I didn't have to sing birthday songs anymore. Red Robin was a means to an end. But no, it has been a really, really wild ride for us because when we started, we started off as wholesalers, and it's just we've seen a lot of different things over the last 18 years. So it's been an amazing experience. It's a tough experience, and you learn lots of lessons. But the more you hang in there, the more you can keep going.
What if you can just fast forward to today? What does your portfolio look like today?
So
your personal portfolio.
So right now we have close to, with my partner Will, we have close to 1,000 doors in Seattle, or between King, Snohomish, and Pierce County. So we started with one, and so we're right about the 1,000 door count right now. So in addition to, we're actually kind of low on the fix and flip side, but we have about 10 we're wrapping up right now, and then we have about 50 townhomes we're building. Have a couple dadu projects. Too many things. Too many things.
Can you explain to people that don't know you or don't know the Heaton Dainard business model, what it's about? Because I feel like that is such a rich source of deals, funding, just great design and off-market properties. So like, what is the whole Heaton Dainard model?
Yeah, and that's a good question. So we built Heaton Dainard. So when we started our career, we were wholesalers finding good deals on the market, or not on the market, off market. And we were banging doors from 2005 to 2008. And we ended up getting really good at sourcing off-market properties. We were doing about 10 to 20 deals a month.
No, so wait. So when you say banging doors, what does that mean?
We are old school. So the wholesalers of today have it easy. They text message, they cold call, they have technology. We did not have, I'm like the guy walking in the snow to the school bus. Yeah. But it's we had a piece of paper, a list of the houses that were in, at the time, distress, and we would take this list and you go bang doors all day long. And that's how you would find your deal. There wasn't all the things like call rooms, texting, that wasn't around. And so we come from a very old way of doing it. I still like doing it this way, where you go up on the porch, you bang on the door, and you see what happens when they open it. And I learned a lot of lessons and saw a lot of weird experiences during that time.
So what was your weirdest experience?
I don't know if I can even talk about it.
Talk about it, talk about it, talk about it.
I have a lot of them. The weirdest experience I ever had was when a seller asked me to give her a back rub when she was signing the deal. And I was like 22. And she was not 22.
Did you do it?
I did do it.
Did you get the house?
It wasn't there was no oil, there was no lotion. It was kind of like one of these. Well, the saddest part about that experience is I tied up the deal. I've been working this lead for 2 years, like talking to, because back when we were doing it, it was kind of like there was people out there banging the doors trying to lock down the foreclosure. And how we got good at doing it, and this is tying into the whole Heaton Dainard thing, is when we're starting businesses in real estate, we're always looking at how to solve the problem, not just do a service. And so back then we created this problem-solving things for people. They were in distress. They needed a new place to live, and so we would come in, buy their house structured, pack up movers, get them in credit repair, put them in a brand new house, and get them all settled. And once we started doing that, our business really, really took off because we were providing a service at that point. And so, but also part of our service is when we would meet distress, we would, if they wanted to keep their house, we would give them every option they could to keep their house. So we would meet with them, help them with loan modifications, tell them what to do, because at the end of the day, we were a backup plan for them, and that was okay. So this lady kind of went through our options. I had put her on 3 payment plans, and by the 4th payment plan, I'm like, you can't do this. But the worst part about this thing is, so then I had to get the backer up. I got the contract, and then subprime mortgages blew up 5 days later.
Wow.
And so we didn't even sell the deal. I made $0 on it after 2 years, and I felt very violated. It was
very dirty.
Yes, the house was dirty. It was not a clean house. It was in Pacific, Washington, if anyone knows that city.
Ooh.
Yes, exactly. But going into the question on Heat and Dainard real estate, is we provide a service for investors where, and Heat and Dainard real estate came to fruition in basically like 2008, 2009, because we were really good at finding deals. And at that time, there was a lot of really good buys out there. But the problem was 2008 had happened and everybody hated real estate. Like it was literally like it had leprosy. Like you could have a house for $1 and try to give it to somebody and they're like, get that away from me. Yeah. And so as wholesalers are trying to run an investment business, that can be tough, right? And it was like the lights had totally turned off. You go down to the auctions, no one was there. Yeah. And so like we went from wholesaling and selling to investors to I'd bang on doors, get a contract, and go knock all the neighbors' doors trying to sell them a rental property. And it was a grind. And so the thing that we had realized is no one was going to buy, so we started buying a lot of property. And so we were buying and flipping in a market that no one really was doing that in, or not a whole lot of volume in. And what we had realized is it wasn't that people didn't like real estate, it was they were terrified of it. Mm-hmm. And so we built this business to mitigate risk for people. And so like the whole premise was, okay, we're going to find you the deal, but then we're going to help you all the way through the transaction, right, and then help you with the dispo. And by offering that service, the business kind of took fire because it was like, okay, you don't have contractors, we will help you find the contractors. You don't know how to design a house, we're going to tell you how to design a house. You got a budget of, this is back when we used to renovate homes. Yeah. Who was flipping back or buying homes back then? Because construction was a lot different. You could renovate a whole home for like 30 grand. If you had 30 grand, it was going to go a long ways. Yeah. It was a lot different. And so that's how we created the business, it was finding solutions to problem. The other problem was, so we created this business, it would source the deals, and then we helped them mitigate the risk by helping them through the process. Yeah. And then the second, how we started lending money was, it was also really hard to get hard money back then. Like when I was buying in 2008, I was paying a guy 4 points and 18% interest. And that wasn't like, it was kind of like, oh, that's the cost of the money. And so, but it was hard to get loans done. People were having to come up with big down payments. It was super, super expensive. And so that's when we created interest funding because it was about solving that issue. So we had a deal, we knew the financing, we knew how much cash they needed, and then it was mitigate the risk with a detailed construction plan and kind of handhold them all the way through that process. And once we did that, it kind of caught fire. I mean, that's even how I met you. Yeah. It was new investors needed help. And it was either go pay a coach a ton of money, and then all these people come into our office that they paid them a bunch of money, and then they didn't have any money, so they couldn't buy a property. Yeah. Or we had to teach them how to do it. And so that's, our whole business is built off customer service, and it's also built on our experience. So when we're selling things or looking at things, it's how we would do it. And we won't, and that, I think that's why a lot of clients like us, we don't sell property that we don't know how to execute on. And if we can't execute on it, we're not going to sell it because we can't give that investor that detailed plan. And so it's all about planning and preparation. And, since 2010 is when it really, really started, it's kind of definitely caught fire.
So how many homes have you guys sold at this point? And for investors just primarily to flip?
We are coming up probably like nearly 4,000 doors for flips. So
yeah. Okay, so let me break this down for you. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. So what Heat and Dainard does is they find you the deal. They, in the old days, found contractors. Maybe not so much now.
Well, what we do now is we'll give roofers, electricians, and we give resources. We try. There's a reason behind that we can't really give out generals that often. there's licensing rules that the state doesn't like. So we don't.
Yeah.
We used to get the general, bid the contract, send it off.
Yeah, it's like a one-stop shop.
We do kind of avoid that.
And they finance the deal in the middle, right? Like when you buy it, they finance it. And then they have an amazing listing team. Like their listing team, no joke, every property that I have sold has sold for way above list. And it's because of the listing brokers. And just, you know, how you've trained them to do that. So it's like, honestly, a one-stop shop. But now I buy my long-term rentals, I buy commercial spaces, I buy apartments, and they do all of that. You guys find all of those properties, assets.
Yeah, so we're always trying to source and we're trying to educate our clients on what is profitable, what is a good investment. And so because I think that's the difference between us and a lot of other brokerage shops. There's a lot of brokers out there that source investments, but there's not a lot of brokers that actually do the investing. And so for us, we provide multifamily commercial because we also buy it ourselves and we renovate it. We sell dirt because we build homes ourselves in Seattle. So we can underwrite and understand the deal correctly. And that is really key when you're underwriting because there's so many weird variances in every deal, right? Like if the house is on a hillside, that makes a big impact for permitting. And so these things, we sell what we buy.
Yeah.
And we're also very, very active investors that are always buying new stuff. And then a lot of times we're learning all the hard lessons for our clients up front and going, okay, we figured out this plan. Now we can package and sell this off. And so we're kind of the guinea pigs.
Yeah. I love that. Better you than me. Okay. So let's talk about the market. The market is really up and down and sideways. So with the recent bank collapses and the interest rate hikes, what are you seeing? So James, if you don't know, is also co-host of the On the Market podcast for Bigger Pockets. And all they do is talk about the market economics when it comes to real estate investing. What can you educate us on?
Luckily, I think that we've seen a lot of the compression in the market. I know the last 6 to 7 months have not been enjoyable for a lot of people probably in this. If you own real estate the last 6 to 7 months and you bought it sometime during 2022, you did not do well. It doesn't matter what you bought, you weren't going to perform that well. Including ourselves, we definitely felt it. You know, the more real estate you own, the more you feel it. And we definitely owned a lot of property during that time.
Yeah.
The good thing is what we're seeing now, like in the market right now, we are running. So for the last 6 months, we've been running about 40 to 50% pending on our listings. And we typically, on average, we have about 50 listings in the market, 50 to 60 listings. Right now, we're pending at 75%. And so we've seen actually in this that quarter four was extra brutal because not only was the cost of money really high, which it still is, but it also reintroduced things that are normal, which is a seasonal slowdown. We all forgot about seasonal slowdowns because COVID evaporated them, right? Like you could still, we used to never flip before 2018. If we had a project finishing up in December, we were sitting on it until January. COVID, you could flip it live and it was still going to sell. And so it brought back in the seasonal slowdown. So it kind of really brought it down. But things are transacting. You have to be priced right. And if you're priced right, you have to be patient too. I mean, there's plenty of homes that we just sold after 50 days and we sold them very close to list because we just stayed tight on our pricing. But you have to stay in front of the comparables. From what I understand, that I actually think that rates are going to ease up in about quarter four. Okay. They should be in the high fives by then from everything I'm reading. The only thing that really, as far as what the Fed's doing, we should be in the high fives unless the treasury yield goes nuts, which will be outside factors at that point. The banking collapse, I wasn't overly concerned with. I mean, the biggest concern for me is the venture capitalists have a lot of power. They're really the ones that gutted that bank, right? When they pull out $45 billion in 48 hours, that's going to be a problem, right? And so that I would be cautious of. But that bank was making a lot of bad investments and not around real estate.
Yeah.
And I did call a couple people that I know that are pretty heavily plugged in there. And they basically said, well, we did our analytics and there's basically 6 banks that are in this kind of hot water.
Wow.
And out of the 6, they think it could happen to 3, but that's not that bad, right? Compared to, I mean, these are not Goldman Sachs. Like, I mean, in 2008, these were big banks going down.
Right.
And so I'm not too concerned with that right now. I get more concerned with the panic that happens. Bad information came out and the money raced out, right? And so that's really what we see the market shifts in, is that panic. Bad press goes out, people lock up in fear, and the whole market stalls. And so I'm more worried about the mental than the actual economics behind it.
Yeah. So who over here is just starting your investing career? Okay. So a lot of people. What is your advice to them? What is, especially starting out in this market, how does one get started?
Well, the first thing is come to Heaton Dainard Real Estate. We will take it. But if you're starting new, there is no wrong or right time to start in real estate. What it comes down to, for anybody starting in real estate, you have to narrow what you want to do first. Because the problem with real estate is it's vast. And the problem with social media is people are putting stuff out everywhere. And so it causes people to get confused. And so what you want to do is first is what are you trying to accomplish? You want to audit who you are as an investor. As an investor, you want to go, how much money do I have to play in real estate? That's the first thing you want to do. Based on that, that's going to dictate a lot of what you're doing. And then you want to figure out what your goals are. Is your goal to rapidly grow? That's going to mean you want to get into higher risk investments like flipping development. Those are high risk business, right? Anything that you can make 40, 50% return on, even 30% return on in a 6 to 9 month period, that means it's risky. That means you can also take a haircut very quickly as well. But you want to audit your liquidity and then find out, okay, how do I want to grow that? So like for me, when I was starting out new, I had like $8,000 in the bank. And it was about getting into my first deal. So it was about finding the right financing. That's the money part. I had this much money, so what can I buy? Then I had to get qualified for a loan. That's, people kind of race to go find the deal, but you need to know how much money you have and what you can play with before you go do that. And so audit what your liquidity is, and then you got to audit what your skill set is. Buying the best deal in the world, if you don't know how to execute on it, is a bad idea. Like, I could go buy a really good land deal, but if I don't know how to develop it and build it, I'm going to lose money on that project or barely break even. And so audit what your skill set is and go, okay, what am I good at? I was talking to somebody today that was doing midterm rentals. And that's what he's good at. So that's what he's out buying. He knows how to stabilize it. He has a business plan behind it. That's what he sticks to.
Who is it? Was it Eric?
Where'd he go? Oh, he left. Short-term rental. He's in and out. It's but sticking to what and then take baby steps, right? Like we do massive construction projects. We did not start with that. We started with carpet, paint, countertops, appliances, and we were okay with thin margins. And as we did thinner margin deals, we got to learn construction. And then we can go into a little bit bigger project, and then we bring those in. And then the smaller deals would help build our liquidity up at the same time. But so it's all about building liquidity, but it really depends on what you want to do. If you have a full-time job and you just want real estate because it's a good long-term hold, you can go buy some cleaner stuff and just let it grow. For me, I'm trying to get to the finish line as quickly as possible. And so I'm trying to grow my liquidity rapidly. I do that with high-risk investments. That's lending money, flipping properties, developing properties. And so you really want to figure out, don't just look at the now and what people are saying, go, okay, I have this, where do I want to be in 5 years? Based on that 5-year plan, you can start to map out what you do. But take baby steps. Like, I've seen it happen a lot, especially in the last 2 years, because the market was so hot. People were just buying whatever they could, and then they would get themselves in a little bit of trouble. Construction's not easy, so you want to take your steps. Another thing people can do, and I used to do this too, is you can joint venture with contractors too. If you have no contractor experience and you want to grow, the best thing you can do is bring in the partner that knows how to do it and give them some equity in that deal. And so just look at what your resources is, what kind of liquidity is, and then what's your 5-year plan, then what's your 10-year plan. That will dictate how you're going to buy. If you want to get to financial freedom in 5 years, then maybe hold off on the buy and holds and grow with your flipping business. Like 2008, we got leveled. Everything, I lost everything. So I started over. So I had to build liquidity, by flipping homes, and then I would take a percentage of that liquidity. It was 25% every time we stick in an account, and then that's what we started buying our rentals with. And so you can just cut it up, and then save the most important thing: save your money. Save your money, stick it in real estate. That's your piggy bank.
So right now, with the number of listings you guys are doing, where do you see the maximum? This is a weird mic. Where do you see the max benefit? Like, is it the luxury space, or is it like the lower, like 500K and lower homes, or is it the 500 to a million? Like, where do you see the max sales?
Like when we're selling them, dispo?
Yeah.
It depends on the county you're in, right? So King County is gonna be different than Pierce County. So like the sweet spot, like if you're in Seattle proper and you have good product, like right now the sweet spots are kind of like 700,000 to 800,000 in there, and then it's like $1 million to $1.25 million. And then the markets that are kind of the slowest right now in fill is going to be like 2.4 and above. That stuff is long and it's taken a while. You know, we have a couple properties that are expensive that are listed, and we're sitting there, and that's okay because they're priced right. And so you just have to anticipate keeping them longer. The best deals right now in the market are the ones that are the hardest, and there's huge margins in them right now. Like if you have a construction skill set, the deals we were just looking, like you can buy stuff for 30% cheaper or with 20% better margin than you could 12 months ago.
What are these kinds of deals?
Most of them will be pretty heavily. So with the best deals, because people always ask me what I buy.
Yeah.
I buy the stuff that none of you guys want. It has nothing to do with, I like to go to the areas where there's no competition, and that's usually tough, complex plans. Or, you know, like the last couple flips that we're wrapping up, we have like almost $2 million into these houses or more. And so not a lot of people play in those spaces, right? And so that's why we stick there. But like right now, I'm heavily getting after the craftsmen's in Seattle again, because people are like, oh, the permit sucks, the construction is tough. And the end users don't want to buy it because the cost of money is so hard. So there's zero demand there. And also the builders have left the market. And so these houses that were $800-900 grand for us to buy that were trading at 1.8, we can now buy them for 600. And that's not a mystery. Those aren't mystery deals. They're just on the market.
Yeah.
And so going to the old, tougher renovation plans or houses with funky floor plans, like people walk in, everybody wants the cookie cutter, I want to turn 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, cosmetic. I don't blame you. I would take those in droves too if I could, but the margins are thinner. Yeah. And so where we're seeing the best opportunity is like the old 1910 to 1930s or homes with funky floor plans where people walk in and they just can't imagine. And so if you use your imagination and you have the right team behind you, you can get really good buys.
Talk to us about the worst deal you ever did, because I know you just lost a lot of money on a deal. So talk to us about one of the worst deals you did.
First of all, I lose a lot of money on a lot of houses. That's part of the game, right? And luckily, I learned that lesson in 2008, right? I probably had a little bit too much cockiness behind me because I was like, oh, we're crushing deals. Like we were wholesaling so many properties. And then I was buying them, I was flipping, I was making money. I had 12 rental properties, so I thought it was really cool. And then the whole market froze up and I lost everything on one flip. I had all my money in. It just chased the market down. I was done, right? So that was, and I wouldn't even call that the worst deal. It was the best deal I ever did because I learned so many valuable lessons. But the deal we just did that sucked, and trust me, I'm in the same, but everyone's like, oh, you do so many homes, you never lose money. No, I lose more than everybody in this room. It's just, that's just what it is, right? You can't beat the market.
Right.
And so this is a house that sucked, actually. So we bought this property, we were gonna flip it. We got full building permits on it, and then we ended up deciding there was some foundation issues on it. So we're like, all right, just jack it up, pour a new wall, right? We had full building permits, no big deal. Jack it up, pour the wall, set the house, or already set the house back down, and the neighbor comes down the street, he's like, hey, you guys are gonna block my view. And I'm like, okay, there's no view restriction. So, but the good news is it's coming right back down. Just chill out, dude. Just relax. And then 3 days later, he just gets too nervous because I hadn't sat down yet, and he calls the city. City comes out, and they go, oh, you got an ECA site here. Wait, and does anyone know what ECA is? Okay, everyone in this room needs to know what that is. It's environmental critical areas. Okay, there's a lot of property in Seattle that's on that. What that means, it is a total pain in your ass to renovate, and your permits are going to take 2 to 3 times longer than a normal house. So we already waited 6 months to get our first permit. We already spent $100,000 on this house, residing it, windowing it, framing it, jacking it up, pouring a new foundation, and about ready to set it down. They hit us with this, back into 12 months worth of permitting. And at that point, we had to run all the metrics behind it and go, okay, with 12 months of debt costs on this, the renovation cost, the exit value, this ain't gonna work. And so we switched the plan. In this house that we had already put $100,000 into, we then permitted a brand new house and we scraped the whole thing. So knock down, build a house, amazing house. It's probably one of the nicest houses that we've built.
What location was that?
I was in Leka.
Oh.
View property, great piece of property. That's worth money. It was definitely worth money, a lot more at the beginning of the year. So because we had this project, it went on for 2.5 years, right? When you have to re-permit a house, you got 15 to 18 months of permits just sitting there, right? That's 18 months of debt cost you're racking up. And debt cost is expensive when you're sitting that long. And so, but the good news is the market was ripping, everything's going good. The value was at $3.25 million at one point. And then the Fed changed their minds, right? And so we ended up selling that house and we missed it by literally 60 days. That's not a long time window. If we would have done 60 days earlier, 3.25 is the sale. We sold it for 2.6. So there goes the spread, there goes the margin, there goes our money.
Wow.
And so we ended up losing about $350,000 on this house. And because you can't keep that as a rental either. I mean, you can't have debt on that. And that's like $14,000 a month payment with having $400,000 in the deal. So at that point, you just eat your loss and you move on and reload. And it's, you know, but the one thing that I learned from 2008 is we all did really well in 2018, 19 if you were buying, and 18 to 21.
Yeah.
When you're in an elevated market, the best thing you can do is put away reserves. Because at some point, the music stops and you're looking for that chair. And if you don't have that chair sitting there, you're going to get your ass whooped. I'm sorry. And so, you know, luckily, we've put money aside so we can cover those losses.
Yeah.
It's not fun. No one wants to do that. But it just is what it is.
So if you need that chair right now, call Urkel, because Urkel's company can give you that chair. Just saying. That's Urkel. Hey, that's long runway.
Hey, 12 months is better than no months.
Exactly. Who's having fun? Who's learning something? Okay, good. So, who's heard of bigger pockets? Maybe. So,
hey, this is a short-term rental.
Oh, that's him. Oh.
Midterm rental.
Midterm.
My bad.
Okay, so Bigger Pockets is having a conference later this year, and you should all go because James and I just found out that we're gonna be your MCs. Yeah.
And Leka's gonna open with a freestyle.
And James is gonna follow.
I'll be
so we're gonna start practicing. Yeah. But it's gonna be such a great conference. It's 2,600 people, Orlando, Florida. Registration opens today. So if you want to come for it, just go to biggerpockets.com//registration and go buy your tickets. And I want like a huge Seattle gang going there because they have not one but 2 Seattle MCs. Yeah. So
and don't wait too long.
And don't wait too long.
The last conference, I had a lot of people messaging me like, "Hey, can you get me tickets?" I couldn't get any.
Yeah.
So it does sell out fairly quickly.
So they have the, if you write to them, they'll send you the link to the room. I just booked my room today. So at that JW Orlando Grand Lakes Marriott, it's like I get a discount because I travel a lot. It's $820 a night. So you can book through Bigger Pockets for around $300 a night. Well worth it. It's really nice.
What is wrong with these hotels? $800 a night?
That's
Come on.
crazy.
Sick of this inflation.
So through Bigger Pockets is 300 a night? Awesome.
So if you
Awesome.
look outside of their pockets, like my
Maybe the MCs should go book tonight, huh?
Probably sleep in my car like here.
Okay, on that note, what has been your favorite deal you've ever done that made you the most amount of money?
Well, my favorite deals are the easy ones.
Yeah.
Well, I would say the best deal we ever did, because we owned it for 48 hours, is it was actually in 2009. There was now, honestly, we should have kept it, but at the time, we needed to build liquidity.
Yeah.
So there was this hard money lender was foreclosing on a 6-unit down in Tacoma. I actually own one of our clients owned the duplex now right next door. And they owed $650,000 on this building. At the time, it was worth nothing because everything had crashed. And so we went to the lender, and because we knew they're a hard money guy, and they wanted to get the loan off their books. So 48 hours before the auction, they thought they were going to get a much lower bid amount.
Yeah.
And so we went down and we bought the note off them for $210,000. It was owed $650,000. And so then we're like, cool, we got this building for $210,000. We're going to take it down the auction and we're going to foreclose it and keep it, right? So then we go down the auction. We set the opening bid. It was like we actually set the bid at like $300,000. And then because it was us, and there's a competitive company down there, and they're like,
Vestas?
oh, you guys want, yeah, Vestas. So they wanted to bid us up because they didn't know we owned the note.
Oh,
So
shoot.
I'm sitting at the auction bidding against them because I'm like, dude, what are you guys doing? Like, I already bought this. This money coming back to me anyways.
Yeah.
And so I didn't say that to them, and they bid this thing all the way up to like $400,000, which was straight market value. And I was like, you can have it. And he's like, oh, got it. I'm like, thanks, bro. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, we were the bank. And he's like, what? And so we made $190,000 in 48 hours, and we never touched it. And now we've made more money than that on projects, but it was the easiest thing ever. So it's like,
Right.
and I got to stick it to a competitor, which is even better. That was like, I know, for me, that was more the highlight at that point. And granted, you guys, I know the owners there; they're actually really good dudes. Yeah. But it's that was by far my favorite deal.
Oh my god! So that's my favorite thing about real estate is just putting yourself in those situations can be extremely lucrative. So I ended up buying a property from James. I buy most of my properties from James, so it's not a surprise. But it was a single family flip in Sammamish.
Oh yeah.
And when I bought this, it was a single family flip in Sammamish. And so I was going to make 30 grand on it. This was back in 2017. And I was so happy with that deal because cute little split entry on a huge lot, and I was happy.
Great garage.
Yeah, great garage. So it was a good house. But the day after I closed on it, I realized that I could subdivide this lot. I could short plat it. And so I ended up short platting it and made a pretty large profit. Then after I short platted, I sold the lots. Where do I put my money, right? I don't want to pay like a ton of taxes on it. And so I went back to James and I was like, look, I'm going to come up on a 1031 and I need a property. It can be anything. It can be a single family flip. It can be a duplex. It could be a triplex. Literally the market was so hot, like we couldn't find anything. And also at that time, I was really excited about just triple net buildings. And so I was looking all over the country for a triple net building. And the whole time James is like, I don't think you should leave the Seattle market. This is the best market. Like, this is where your troops are. This is where your boots on the ground. So this is where you should be buying. And then one day out of the blue, he called me and he's like, hey, I may have a building. It's right next to Amazon and Facebook on Dexter. Do you want it? That's all he said. He didn't tell me what it was. He didn't tell me how much it was.
I said it's $350 a foot.
Yeah, $350 a foot.
$350 a foot.
Yeah, $350 a foot. But we didn't have the final numbers yet. That's all he said. That was March 2021. And I was just so fixated on the street I was like, I haven't seen this building, but I want it. I don't know the work involved, but I want it. So then he gave me the address. He said, drive by it. And I drove by it and I was like, oh my God, what a crazy location. This building looks super psycho from the outside, more psycho on the inside. But I want it. And I wouldn't hear back from him. And then he would respond like 2 weeks later. He's like, I still am working on this building for you. I promise. I'm working with a broker. And when James says something, he does it. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave him be for a week. Then I'm going to hound him again. So then I texted him again. No joke. I would bring my kids here. I would put them in front of the building and I would take photos and I would send it to him.
Which I highly recommend not doing, by the way. Don't fall in love with the building before you buy it.
I fell in love with the building. I would send him photos in the middle of the night, like, please, this has to be in my kid's future. He's like, fine. And then he would call the broker the next day. So we went back and forth, back and forth. I even listed the building on my 1031 exchange before we had it under contract because I was like, I don't care if I have to lose money on taxes, but I want this building. And it happened. Like, finally, he made it happen. In fact, the owners of the building ended up selling it to a hedge fund. And he tracked down the hedge fund and he got this building for me. It was this building, by the way.
That was part of the issue. The title had changed as we were going. And then they wanted too much too.
And they wanted too much. So, and we gave it to them because we were like, it's worth it.
Well, they started way higher.
And they started way higher. Yeah. But this is the cool thing. When for us, his bank did an appraisal on the building. So we finally got it under contract for 1.95. That was our purchase price. When the bank appraised it, it appraised for 2.4. Wow. And the bank said, is this an arm's length transaction? Because you guys are getting such a screaming deal. And it was. So that's just a really fun story. And that was my favorite deal I've bought from him.
What about, there's a couple good ones in there though.
And then of course the easy ones. I once flipped a house. I held it for 4.5 months. I traveled to 5 different countries in those 4.5 months. Came back and listed it bought it from Vlad, sold it with Megan, and made a $275K profit. Not shabby at all.
Always she's on the beach.
All the while I was on the beach, yeah. So talk to us about building this amazing team, because I just think you have the golden hand when it comes to finding people. How do you do that?
So a lot of our team was
Bozzy.
Yeah, we're expanding rapidly right now. A lot of our core team, right? So because it all started with like one person. Well, actually, started with 2 people. The most important person on building teams having a really good transaction manager, especially for salespeople. And then it just started, it started with 1, right? And then it went to 2, and then it went for 4, and then 6. And what we've always kind of prided ourselves on, especially back when we were building, was actually hiring people with no experience. And the reason we wanted to do that is we wanted to train them a specific way. And it is our way, because I don't believe in anyone else. It's not that it doesn't work, I just don't do it that way. And that's okay. And so we started building the team that way. So it started with, we had 1 acquisition broker, 1 listing broker. And then it went to 2 acquisition, 2, and then it doubled in the team.
Yeah.
And I can say typically at our company, when people take a job, they're either there for 3 to 6 months, and then they have to move on, or they're there for, we have lots of employees that have been here longer than 10 years. And so, and that's really the thing that we like to do with our business is we have our core way of doing the business, but then everything else that they can do, we set up for entrepreneurial. It's like, hey, if you do your own transaction, they get to keep basically all the money on it. And so it allows people to grow and do what they want. And then I think a lot of it too is I'm a very hands-on owner. So I don't mind getting in now I'm trying to get a little bit out of it because I'm knee deep and stuff all the time, but it's like getting in and just trying to resolve the issue.
Yeah.
And we're really excited because we brought in Kwesi. He's our new designated managing broker. And I think we've already had, Moose just joined.
Well, everyone that works for James Dainard stand.
Everybody stand up. No.
Everybody stand up. Yeah.
I'm new.
Moose is he's new, but not new.
Yeah, Moose has been around.
Yes, very seasoned.
Long time.
Do we take interns? Oh, we do actually. Yeah, actually, I'm trying to think. We've had some interns actually turn into very serious full-time employees. um, and now we're growing. You know, as the business has grown and our reputation has grown, we're launching new sales departments and we're trying to bring in more infrastructure. And so that's what Kwesi's doing. He's helping us grow the business.
Yeah.
We're doing a lot more cool things at the office. There's a lot more training, interactive. And then we're going to be doing a lot more investment training for brokers on a broad scale rather than just for our core team. So
yeah, I love that. Tyler.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the fix and flip. Tell us, like, doing your most fix and flip going on at the same time, and how can you manage that?
So scaling your fix and flip business, I was actually talking to somebody about this with wholesaling a couple days ago because their wholesaling business was having issues. And wholesaling and fix and flip are the two hardest businesses to scale because there's like a sweet spot in there. And it depends on what's also going on in the market. Like today, the most projects I ever had running at one time was we had nearly 100 going. And it was back in like 2012 to 15 in that era. But that was an era too where general contractors were a lot more available. And so we used to run it with 3 project managers, and then we had a mixture of generals. And so we were just babysitting generals, but then we were also spread out over all 3 counties. So we were anywhere from like Enumclaw to Gold Bar. And it was just, because we were just buying where the deals were. And so we were also working with a lot of hedge funds back then too. And so I think, at one point, I think we did like 160 flips that and you had to do more too, because like we were selling properties for like 250 grand, like 350 grand. So you had to do volume to get the return, but it's a lot easier to manage. But then as the labor shortage kept growing, right? Because Seattle isn't used to this building boom, right? They don't have the same labor problems as San Francisco because they already went through the booms. They still have resources there. I was talking to a big builder about this. They came in, they're building on budget in 5 other markets, but they are getting smoked in this market because it's really hard to manage. And so now scaling, like right now, I think this last year and a half, we were running like 25 to 30 projects at a time. And that's kind of our breaking point. But now we're doing bigger projects too. So like as your scalability shrinks, you just get into bigger deals, because at the same time, running a project on a big site isn't much different than a small site. And so if you still got to rip it to studs. And so that's why we went into the more expensive markets, because it's like, well, I'd rather dump a bunch of money into 3 houses rather than 50. And so, but scaling your fix and flip, it's about having the right team. And when the wheels come off, it sucks when you got a lot of projects going on, because that happens, right? Project managers break down, general contractors break down. And so, but how we've always done it is we've had our guys drive the sites every week. We had people driving sites every week. We'd have weekly meetings. We kept everything on, we use smart sheets, so everything's documented down. We see photos anytime I can go through where the progress is. And so it's about having a good accounting team behind you to track everything. But I would say running 100 fix and flips in today's market in Seattle is nearly impossible. And if you could do it, your life is going to be miserable. So I would highly recommend against it. You guys, flipping homes and remodeling homes is a tough business. Building homes is actually a lot easier. It's a lot more systematic. Flipping homes, you go in with a plan, and then your contractor blows up because they're not that. There's a different level of professionalism in who you're hiring too, and not only that, like the professionalism, like even with the labor, like so we've seen labor costs jump dramatically the last 2 years. New construction jumps, but not nearly like fix and flip, because the fix and flip contractors are just throwing numbers at the stuff. Whereas the builders are actually, those subs are actually raising their prices. There's a difference. And so fix and flip, because you have to tear into a house, and things go awry when you start tearing into things. And so, I would say right now for us, running 20, 30 is pretty doable. Now what we're doing too is actually shrunk, because I need a certain amount of staff for that, and I shrunk that staff down, and we're probably gonna be running like 10 to 15 at a time, and then I'm bringing in joint venture generals to take the rest. I'm giving them a cut of the equity. So I actually have found that that's the best way for me to scale right now. is to bring in partners on the site so they can babysit it more to free up time so I can grow the other things.
Okay, so I want to open it up to you guys. What questions do you have for James?
Hey, James, how's it going? Earlier you mentioned that you're right now in a spot where you're trying to maximize liquidity, scale your capital. You're talking about your end goal. What exactly is that end goal for you?
It's a big number. It's I don't know if I want to go into specifics of my number, but I want to make sure that all my living expenses are at 30% of my passive income. That is my goal. So, if you have that, I don't want to go over my living expenses either. So I split my time in Newport Beach right now, so those expenses are all out of whack. So I would say that's what I'm trying to get to, like enough passive income to where I can live super comfortably the lifestyle I want to live. That's going to take up 30% of that at the end of that. And how you do that is you can hit it in phases, right? Like I made a pretty good chunk on that the last 3 years. Now it's settling down, so the growth won't be the same. So I have to switch up my plans on how I get there at that point. Like right now, I'm trying to implement more tax saving benefit things in, because if the income drops down a little bit, you can pick it up in other ways. And so it's about just trying to take money aside. That's the biggest key, is people burn their money. Take the money, set it aside. And then not only that, just don't stick, like for me, I don't stick it in one asset class. I put money in our own syndicate. We syndicate properties. I stick money in there for tax savings. I buy my own rental properties. I lend money privately to people that gives me a higher yield. So I can I take my cash and I go, okay, I make it like a pie chart. Just like a financial planner would go, this is high risk, this is passive, this is not. I'm now doing some passive flips with our friend Kara in Arizona. So if I'm not the operator, I'm giving up part of the deal. But by doing that, I can kind of mitigate risk at the same time. Because the other thing you don't want to do is blow up your pie chart. Because then you got to start over, and I've worked too many years to start over. It would be miserable.
Yeah.
So a lot of hours, but that's more how I work it. Where am I trying to be? What can I live off of? And then figure out that percentage from there.
I have a question. What about advice for wholesalers? Like, where do they get started in this market?
Yeah, wholesaling is a great business. You can come talk to us. We'll actually set you up with leads, phone numbers, systems for calling. You just got to bring us the deal first. Well, it's not free. It is free, but you still got to give a professional courtesy. And I think we're actually fairly good buyers too. But wholesaling is good, but you really need to know your numbers. Wholesaling, the whole wholesaling game got broken the last two. I mean, you've been in this business longer than COVID. The art of wholesaling, and everybody who's wholesaling here needs to understand this, is you have an exclusive off-market property. You also, because it's off-market, you need to give it a better deal than the on-market. You don't get trapped, because everyone got trapped on the performance now. This is what the performance says. Like, someone just sent me a deal, and it was like $750,000 in the Central District. And I was like, okay, that sounds reasonable. And so I was very interested. And I was looking, I'm like, okay, it's got some return on it. I'm looking at the comps. But then I pulled up all the asset sales. I'm like, these are trading at $650. So why would I pay $100,000 more today for an asset based on a performer when I can go buy that over here, right? So make sure the discount's there. The second thing is lock your pricing and don't let your deal get sent out everywhere if you want to start. The biggest mistake in wholesaling is that I'm going to network with all these other wholesalers and we're going to get deals done. None of those people make it. That is because that's not the business. You don't just send out deals. Like any of our deals, we don't allow people to send out. These are our deals. We want to sell them. We want to control it. In addition to, we've locked pricing on this because that's the pricing that works.
Yeah.
If you're adding more money to the deal doesn't make sense. And so, I would say if you want to get started wholesaling, you want to find the target you want to focus on. Focus on single family homes. That is what everyone has the biggest appetite for. If you're trying to tie up big deals, it's hard to get debt on those right now. If you're trying to tie up multifamily, it's hard to get debt. And a lot of those sellers too you're going to talk to are people that they're like me. Yeah, I'll sell that. Like the problem with wholesaling multis in this space is you're calling people that don't actually want to sell, but they will sell for a certain number, and it's usually not a number anyone wants to buy. And so focus on what the masses want, single family homes. That would be the first thing. The second thing is find yourself some dependable buyers and work backwards. Right now, who's wholesaling? How hard is it to dispo a deal right now? It's hard because the appetite is changing for different types of assets now. And so what you want to do is get your pricing beforehand, right? So like if you work with big buyers that are dependable, you know your number and you know what they're going to buy for up front. It allows you to negotiate your own price at that point. Like for us, when we're working with wholesalers, we're like, hey, we'll pay you $300,000 for this house. Don't negotiate down to $200,000. I don't care. I can pay $300,000 for it at that point. Whereas you're working it backwards. And today, investors, buyers, they're very cautious. And so they want to make sure that their margins make sense. So network with the right buyer groups that will perform. That's a big deal. And then also be prepared to work hard. If you're not working 40, 50 hours a week as a wholesaler, you're not going to make any money. Pound the phones, work the leads, stay organized, and then also work your time management. If you are focusing on the first person that picks up the phone and they have a high price, let it go. Go find what we want to buy, which is fixer property, stuff with value. Because that's a big mistake wholesalers make is and I get it. You get my first deal I ever tied up was terrible. No one wanted to buy it. It was I didn't even realize it was a short sale, and then I figured out what a short sale was. I was like, oh, they owe more than I could sell it for. It's bad. And so, but me wasting a week on that deal left out so many different contacts I can make. So focus on the right contacts. And then pound the phones, work on it, and grind. It is like right now in real estate, who's doing transactional real estate? Loans, broker, funding, wholesaling. Or is anybody crushing it right now in your transaction business? Like, is it down from last year? Absolutely, right? If you want to make it in a transaction market, grind. That is the key to it. Get to work. Because people are confused right now.
Oh, yeah.
So work hard, right sellers, right buyers.
All right. We are even over time and we didn't even realize it. This has been fantastic. If you could leave us with some advice for what we should be doing in this market or just something wise, what would you leave us with?
We'll work with Heat and Dainard Real Estate. I would say really define your buy box. What are you trying to do? Establish what you're trying to build. Establish what kind of money you expect to make inside that buy box. Stick to your numbers.
Yeah.
If you know what you want to buy, it's easy to make a decision. If you know what you want to buy, it's easier to build a system around it. So narrow that box down. Like the biggest, and I do it myself. Like once I get too spread out, I become extremely inefficient.
Yeah.
So focus on, you can do fine in one asset class.
Give it up for James Dainard. He's done